Are we set? Let's call the meeting, okay? Any public comments? Okay, let's get approval of the minutes of the July 14th meeting. Can I get a motion?
Sir?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the 401k discretionary funds, I'm talking all the time now. Okay. Those 401k discretionary funds, Jeff, you wanna do that one?
Yes, absolutely. And good morning.
Good morning.
We're seeking approval of the 3.4% discretionary contribution to the 401k plan. This has been a standard practice for the past 10 or 15 years. It's included in the fiscal year 2022 budget, which was approved in June. It's approximately $103,000 a year, and the contribution has a 3-year vesting schedule: 30% the first year, 50% the second year, and 100% the third year. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer those for you.
This is kind of
Jeff,
standard
that's
practice.
in addition to the 5?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, can I have a discussion from our auditors on the financial statements?
Yes, if I could take it first. I just
Yes.
first of all want to introduce Erica Alobri.
Okay.
I want to say Alobri. And I also want to just thank the RIFTA finance staff. I think they did a fantastic job. The audit this year was done 100% on a remote basis. And I'm happy or pleased to announce that we were in the first group of 5 to submit to the state of Rhode Island. And I'd also like to thank the Markham staff for their professionalism and the timely communication throughout the process. So with that, I won't say any more, and I'll turn it over to Eric.
Thank you, Board, and thank you, Jeff. And I do ditto what he says. The finance team is great here. We get everything we need in a timely manner, so it makes the audit a lot smoother. So I'm going to start. So I'm Erica Lowry with Markham. So we were engaged to do the 2021 financial statement audit. So if you want to flip to the next slide. So basically, I'll go through the presentation and go through the 2021 audit results. So again, we reviewed these through Partner, and they are through the quality control review for Markham. They're with the Rhode Island Auditor General. So he says we will have comments by the end of the week. So once we get those, we'll talk those through with the team here, make any changes if needed. We don't anticipate any changes to the numbers. Usually it's just commentary on the notes and things like that. So as we go through, you can just ask any questions if you have any. You can go to the next slide. So you guys have the draft of the audit report. So basically the pages 4 to 6 is the auditor's report. So basically it's a clean opinion, it's unmodified. So it discusses what management's responsibility is for the audit, what our responsibility is. It talks about the required supplementary information that's in the financial statements, which is basically your management discussion and analysis, which basically gives you a background of what happened during the year. It has a good analysis of what happened from year to year. So that's a good read if you go through those pages. We also do a yellow book report. So because there's federal funds and everything, we have to give a yellow book. So that's on pages 45 to 46. So during our audit process, we look at the internal controls. We do not test the internal controls, but we do identify if the key controls are in place, and if there were deficiencies, we would bring those to your communication. We communicate with those. So again, there's no deficiencies in internal control that were identified to material weakness. And during our testing, we did not identify any non-compliance. So next slide. So for 2021, your net position increased about $384,000. A lot different than last year, but again, there's things that happened because of COVID, with the total revenues being down, the gas tax was down, and we'll go through those things. Your total net position, which sits in 3 different buckets, which is tied up in capital assets, restricted for bonds, and then also unrestricted. The total of it is about $137.4 million. Okay, you can split. All right, so this might be small, but you guys have the slide deck as well. So this is in total assets. It's comparing year to year, and your total liabilities. So again, your assets are down a little, but if you look in the MD&A, you'll see cash and investments are down. Your receivables are up this year. So again, taking a little bit more time to collect the receivables. The liabilities look like they're down in total, but when you look at the detail, bonds are being paid, so bonds are down where they need to be. The liabilities are up. There was an accrual that was put on the books this year to bring the estimated payout for the Note 8, the contingency that was in there for the retainage. So that's up about 3.6 million that's on the books. This year there's also a severance of about 300,000 that's booked to go to all the tolls, the people that took a severance pay, so that's accrued for 6/30/21. And again, just in comparison for the net position, it went up about 384,000 this year. And the next slide. So this is your results of operations, so like in income statement. In your financial statement, there's a lot more detail. So this is just a high level detail of the operating revenues. So again, we're looking at 33.6 million versus 34 million last year. Again, the toll revenues were down quite a bit due to the pandemic, less traffic. Also the tax, the gas tax was also down as well, about 200,000. All the other buckets stayed about very similar, the transponder revenue and the miscellaneous income for interest revenue. So those stayed about the same. Your operating expenses, again, just so when we talk about that 3.6 million, just so you know, doesn't hit your expenses, that gets capitalized as part of the project. So that, and again, that goes into your capital projects because it was part of the cost of the project. So your operating expenses stayed consistent for this year. Operating income, 8.3 million versus 8.9 last year. Largely attributed to the loss in the revenues, so toll and gas tax. And then your non-operating expenses. So the biggest thing in that bucket, and you can see it in the detail of the financial statements, is your interest expense. So that's about 8 million of it, and then there's some other different things that offset from a revenue standpoint. And then again, the change in that position, about 384,000 this year. Last year it was about 2.3 million. And the next slide we can go to. Are there any questions so far? So this one is just cash flow analysis. So basically, you have a statement of cash flows in your financial statements. I just like to show you guys where the cash comes from. So your operating activities are providing you cash. So not a big difference from last year, about 24 million versus 25 last year. This year there was a lot of payout for projects. So in that second bucket, cash provided and used by capital and financing, that's all your projects. The bridge work that happened, all that, when you paid it off, the cash flow happened this year. There's also the debt and interest payments in that bucket as well. So there's a lot of activity that happened in that bucket. The investing section, so that's everything that came from the proceeds and the purchases of investments. Investment income was down a little, but a lot of proceeds came in this year from the investment pool. So that's just and there's a lot more detail in the financial statements if you want to see each line item and how it was affected. Next slide. So that's basically a snapshot of the financial statements. In the notes, there's a lot more information. So Note 8 talks about the contingency that we were talking about, the 3.6 million. There's a lot of detail in there. There's detail in there about what's due to DOT for all the activity that happens with that transaction. So that payable went up a lot this year, so that went up about 2 million. So there's detail in the notes on that. So just so you know, I want to go over those communications that we'd like to go over with the board at the end of the audit. I'll also give you an identifying of what new GASBs are out there coming down the pike. Obviously, we probably all heard about the lease one. That's the big one that's coming down. And again, all the adjustments were discussed with management. There are no adjustments that were passed on. So if there were any adjustments that we brought to management and they said, I don't want to book it, we would have to bring that to your attention. There were none of those. Everything has been recorded in the financial statements that you have. Again, observations and recommendations. Your team is great here. They do a great job on an annual basis. It makes the end of the year reconciliation and testing a lot easier. Tony's always available. We've been on conference calls throughout the process. So they are a great team you have here. Next slide. So again, no significant audit findings from what we did when we tested. We also had our IT team out here, so we will be discussing with Jeff if there's any like best practice. We can give you guys ideas of things that you can improve on. So in your financial statements, just note there are estimates built into that, right? So there are footnotes surrounding any of the estimates that are in the financial statements. The electronic toll liability is an estimate in there. The allowance for the doubtful accounts, that's something that management works on. There's an estimate built into that. Settlement liabilities, that's an estimate as well. And that obviously the useful life of fixed assets. That's all based on what we've seen in the past and what's happening going forward with the assets that you're purchasing. So when you're looking at the financial statement disclosures, we always like to point out the commitment contingency disclosure. That's note 8. So a lot of information in there that you should read. Again, no difficulties that we had during the audit process. It went very smoothly. We also talked about the misstatements, no past adjustments, and everything's recorded in the financials. Next slide. We had no disagreements with management. Once we get all the Auditor General and the Controller Office comments and we get those all cleared, we will have management sign a representation letter, and then we'll be ready to issue. To our knowledge, there was no other consultation with any other accountants on the treatment of accounting for any of the things that were recorded. Again, no other audit findings or issues that we want to bring to your attention that you should be concerned about. So the other matters, again, we talk about required supplementary information, which is RSI. So that's your MD&A, that's in here. And then also you have supplementary information in the back of those financials. Again, those are state prescribed schedules. The state wants to see those. Again, also your T&E schedule. So they like to see it in their format as well. Next slide. And these are just the new GASBs coming down the pike. So again, leasing, accounting for interest costs before the end of a construction period. And then I took this out. This didn't affect you guys, majority equity interest, but it was for this year. It didn't affect you guys. And GASB 84 was implemented this year. If you're aware of the GASB schedule, that didn't affect you guys as well either. And next slide. And if you have any questions or that's my presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was very Thank you very much.
Yeah, your team did a great job.
You too.
We enjoyed working with you.
Thank you.
Nice to hear.
So can I get a motion to accept?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That was very
Thank you
easy.
guys very much for your time. Have a great day.
Good news today.
Okay, number 6 is the all electronic tolling. Can you follow up with us on this?
Sure. As most of you recall, last month you approved essentially a design and construction oversight budget for us to move ahead with WSP to work on the initial design of this project only through the temporary ORT, AET phases. What this item basically is to approve a budget for the civil construction work and for the catch equipment and software changes and other installations related to the catch piece of this. What we did was we asked both WSP and catch to come up with some budgeted estimates, and WSP has come up with an estimate of $325,000. There is a 25% contingency built into that number for the civil construction for phases 1 and 2 of the temporary work to get us the all electronic tolling. Catch came back with an estimate of $700,000. It is a higher number than we anticipate on their end, especially because of the short time to estimate, and there's just numerous pieces of equipment and software changes needed, and they did their best to come up with their numbers. So these numbers are not to exceed numbers that we would like to ask you to approve for us to move forward. On the civil piece, we anticipate going out to bid, it could be by Friday, or certainly by Monday. I've got some draft plans and specs to review after this meeting actually today. But schedule is very, very tight, so that's why we're asking for some pre-approval, some budget numbers, so that we can keep this moving.
And Madam Chair, if I could just add that on the 700,000 not to exceed number from cash, we did receive some backup from that, for that last night. I did circulate that, and if you look in your binders, I tucked it in behind, on item number 6, I tucked it in behind the WSP proposal.
Great.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, can I get a motion? Yes, second, all in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Okay, now the, number 7 is contract 1903, we're getting a 4.3% increase, Eric, this is 2, but I understand why, so why don't you take this one?
Sure. This is essentially a closeout change order. So we had a couple of final items of work on this project. Part of it included removing and returning some of the Lindsay barrier that was leased for this project. We returned 900 of the pieces that we had leased, and part of that cost was baked in here. We lucked out, we had coordinated with Lindsay, so that a contractor that was working on the job in Mass came and picked up the barrier physically. We did not have to transport it. What we did was we hired Aetna, who was still on site and mobilized over there to provide an operator and load the barrier onto the trucks for us at a relatively small cost compared to what it could have been. So we're asking for approval of just under 17,000 to basically close this project out. The piece that you mentioned, Judy, the 4.3%, I put this in here just to show that at the very end of the project, we ended up with a 4.3% increase to the original budget.
So the actual, motion is to improve $16,746.96. Can I get a motion?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now,
Good job.
Thank you.
okay, contract 1910, okay, and this is the task order for the Newport Pell Bridge inspection. And this is the approach span only at this point. The amount not to exceed $335,365. Eric?
Yes, so just as a reminder to everybody, contract 1910 is an on-call inspection contract. We have several consultants under. This particular task order that we're looking for approval on is to inspect the Newport Pell Bridge approach spans only. In the past, they split the inspection of the Newport Pell Bridge up into approach spans 1 year and the main spans the 2nd year. They do the reporting when they do the official reporting to Federal Highway, which is every 2 years, when they do the main spans. So this inspection will be done, they'll hold the results, but the inspection date gets recorded so that FHWA says, yes, it was recorded on this, it was inspected by this date, it's now due 2 years from this date. So that's, we are going to look into combining inspections into 1 year potentially to see if there's some savings, and that's my next task with WSP, is to see what that savings could be. So we may see that get combined in the future.
Okay, so can I get a motion for $335,365 not to exceed for the inspection?
Move. Question?
Okay, all in favor?
We have a question. I have a question.
Oh, you have a question?
Yes, yes. Real quick, I'm new. So, what's in a, real quick, an approach span?
So approach spans to it, like, for example, on Newport Pell, it's actually the easiest to describe on a bridge such as that. Being a suspension bridge, the main spans are considered the spans that are supported by the cables. So all of the spans that are between basically the vertical piers that lead up to those main spans are considered approach spans. On that bridge, they're comprised of concrete beams, steel beams, a truss span. There's several different types of spans.
And again, I'm new, so I'm not in the learning process, so I apologize.
No, that's fine.
So, that being said, couldn't you incorporate that, like, I think that's what you were saying, into the regular inspection and then save money by
Yes.
doing it at the same time?
I believe we can save some money, and that's what we were discussing this, that moving forward, we're gonna look at combining them again. At some point, they broke them apart. I'm not sure for what reason. It could have been, laying out the cash flow because of the cost of the inspection, but I believe that there's a savings to put them together.
Thank you.
So, okay. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Okay, contract,
I don't know that there was a vote for
No, we was at the point to the floor vote.
discussion.
All those in favor? Aye.
Motion carries. Excuse me.
Yep, number 10.
I believe we were 9.
Oh, 9, I'm sorry.
Yes.
There you. So contract, Mount Hope Bridge,
Oh, it's gonna take me about
inspection, I'm
30
assuming
minutes.
that's you again, Eric?
Yes. So this is another inspection, however, it's not the 2-year routine inspection. We did that inspection last year on Mount Hope, and we were presented results by the consultant, Majesty and Masters, on that inspection. What this inspection is, and this is one that's also recommended by Federal Highway for a bridge such as Mount Hope, this is an interim inspection, so the follow-up inspection on this task order concentrates on those items on the bridge that were identified during the 2-year inspection as being the more so-called critical items to keep an eye on. Federal Highway recommends doing it on a bridge like this just to keep tabs on any further deterioration that may have happened, or to see, what if any repairs are needed in the immediate term. As you can see, the cost is much less on this. It's a much smaller effort because, again, they only focus on the critical pieces of the bridge. Then next year, we would do the full 2-year routine inspection again.
Okay, can I get approval? Okay,
So moved. Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm gonna move something, I apologize, but my daughter is now out of surgery, so I have to get to the hospital. So I wanna go into, executive session, now, okay? Per the, Rhode Island General Law, paragraph 4246-5A2.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
First, we need to clear the room, or anybody?
So we're back into executive session, and we're gonna put a motion up on the floor, which our attorney's gonna read.
Yeah, so this is Attorney Member just reporting back out the progress and the outcome of the executive session on the record. At that executive session, we discussed the resolution of litigation matter, and we took 3 votes. One was to seal the minutes of the executive session, one was to exit the executive session, and the third vote was to authorize the executive director to execute any settlement documents necessary to resolve the litigation on the following terms: release of $945,000 of liquidated damages to its house, payment by the authority of $2.655 million, and recognizing also Aetna will be contributing $500,000 to that settlement as well. And in return for all of that, the pending litigation and the trial will be dismissed and the matter fully and finally resolved.
Great. Good news. Moving on to the next item, number 10. We did the vote, we don't need to close that, right?
No, we're on the record. We're good.
So moving up to number 10, our resolution to establish video toll rate. Is there someone doing a presentation?
I'm sorry, Mr. Vice Chair. I think we're about to suspend. We should have a motion to seal the minutes of the executive session, even in the open session.
Chair recommends motion. Second. Motion made and second.
Thank you, sir.
Any discussion of those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Number 10, establishing the video toll rate. Someone doing?
Yes, I will say that. We're requesting that the board adopt a resolution to establish a video toll rate as a result of converting to AET. The attached report is required under the master indenture, and Centec will be providing a certificate as well that is also required under the master indenture. We engaged Stantec. They're an on-call consultant to analyze and recommend options for the implementation of the video toll rate. As a result of this analysis, Stantec is recommending a video toll rate of $3 per axle, $6 per vehicle. This would replace the current $2 per axle rate. This $3 per axle rate includes additional costs associated with video transactions, including the FTEs associated with image review, the additional costs associated with mailing and processing of payments, the estimated costs related to uncollectibles, and finally, the additional costs associated with DMV lookups. The goal of implementing this video toll rate is to remain revenue neutral, and that's what the certification by Stantec does for the master indenture. We would be no worse than. The effective date of the toll the toll to $3 would be effective December 1st. That in essence provides a 1 month, I'll call it a grace period. From when we go,
Transition period perhaps.
from when we convert to all AET, which will be in the October 27, 28 timeframe. I've included the report from Stantec, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I just like to add one thing, and that is that the transponder is still golden. This rate does not affect if you have an Easy Pass account, and we will be doing a campaign to encourage those who have not yet put an Easy Pass account in place. If you have an Easy Pass account in place and you have a transponder that's working in your vehicle, this rate does not apply. This applies if you have not done that. So we will be urging the public to get your Easy Pass account open in preparation for going all electronic at the end of October.
Gotcha. So then that's, I have two questions. First is about what percentage of the vehicles would this rate increase impact and what type of vehicles?
It'd be,
Go ahead, Jen.
it would be for all vehicles because it's
Yeah.
on a per axle
Gotcha.
basis. And I'm sorry, what was it?
11%.
Yeah, roughly 11%.
So 11%
11%
do not have transponders now.
Correct.
Right.
But this would provide an incentive for people to get transponders.
Absolutely.
The second is, it's revenue neutral, but it'd probably be a good thing to mention here, the benefits of going to something that's a bit more expensive to implement. And what are those? The benefits of this video tolling. You
Well,
get-
it incentivizes, the rate will incentivize people to actually get transponders.
Right.
So if they have a transponder, no matter where they're from, the most they'll pay is $4.
Okay.
And so right now, there's no incentive, and it costs the authority when we have to do video tolling,
Good.
that they're billed $4.
So we're currently losing money on that?
No, we don't lose money, but what it does is, it provides for a more efficient operation. As you well know,
Yeah.
with truck tolling,
Yeah.
the more that have transponders, that's an automatic, seamless process.
Okay.
Or should be, and it is, versus when you move to a video toll, although we do it and we do it well, the less you have, the better.
Okay.
You know, there are, if people don't pay in time, there are fees and, that are associated with that, and some people, don't. But the best thing you can do is incentivize people to get transponders. We did it at the authority with our discount rates. That's why we're at almost 90%, because our discount rates are so much greater than was greater than the cash rate. There was a reason for people to get the transponders versus paying cash. Our toll rate as a Rhode Island resident was 83 cents. So it made people say, oh geez, I'm not gonna pay $4, I'm gonna pay 83 cents. Let me go get my transponder. It's the same thing with the video toll rate. We will cover our costs, as Jeff is saying, the DMV lookup costs, the mailing, the personnel associated with it. But it also will be for people to say, wait a minute, maybe I should just get a transponder.
But you said that it's revenue neutral. So what are the additional expenses that this increase is covering?
The cost of mailings, we have to do the bill by mail.
Yep.
So it's the mailing, it's the
DMV
the DMV lookup, it's the image review, the personnel that we now have, that have to do the image review, and there are multiple people.
I
who
have
do
to
that
hire,
process.
I'm going to have to hire, 3 full-time people to
There
do
you
it.
go. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And having
So-
that was part of the AET conversion, in working with the union, was creating some new positions associated with that.
Because we're taking them off manual tolls, but making them useful in the new operation.
Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you.
Any more questions? Call for vote. Motion's been made and seconded. Abstentions? Denials, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
so I'm a little rusty. So, all right, feel good. We already did the executive session, so moving on to the Director of Engineering and Capital Projects.
Sure, so in your packet, there's certainly details on every project. I'll go through this fairly quickly for everybody and then take some questions if you haven't. The first project, Bridge Electrical and Communication Upgrades, is tied in with the ATMS project further down on the list. And we have, this project stalled for a while. We had some difficulties with a subcontractor on terminating a bunch of the fiber on these projects, on both Mount Hope and Newport Bridge. We now have worked with Wadet, who is the prime contractor, to hire 2 new subs, and they're actively engaged in terminating the fiber. We're working with them, as a matter of fact, as of yesterday, they were out there again, and we're happy with the results to date. So we hope to finish this project up and then be able to turn this project, basically make it live and get the cameras up and running, and then start the testing process. 3 other projects are closing out: the partial deck replacement for Pell, the miscellaneous and unquoted repairs for Pell and Jamestown, and the Mount Hope and Secana miscellaneous steel repairs. Those are closing out. You'll soon see them drop off this list. Jamestown Bridge, guardrail and railing painting. Everybody hopefully has seen the wonderful results out there. The painters that are out there doing a fabulous job on the railing and guardrail. Stark difference to what it looked like. I mean, you're dealing with original 30-year paint out there, and now it's looking great. They've gone over the midspan. They've got a little bit left to do. They probably will, maybe a month or a little over a month to finish the bridge. Then we're going to have to go back down on the north railing and do any touch-ups, because driving across, if you actually looked, it's amazing how many vehicles have already struck the guardrail since it was painted last year. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I've asked that the painters actually, while they mobilize, go down and do some touch-ups on the other side, and then we'll be able to finish that up. Outside of that, we've got some ongoing bridge inspections still, and some load ratings and capital improvement plan. There's no update on that. We'll be getting back on that shortly to get that wrapped up, and then hopefully get a final report by year end. Any questions?
Sounds good. Is there a motion? So we're going to, I guess, get the financials, because we already received the audit report. Is that true, or you still want to do it?
That's right, so we don't have our July and or August financials to report. We have to wait, we close the year in the system, so we'll go forward, be able to do the analysis, and to present get the financial reports out of the system. I can tell you that looking at our revenue and cost for July and August, we are exceeding budget on revenue, and we are under our cost on operating expenses. I also did include, as we agreed, we would provide a listing of any checks in excess of $75,000. There were 4 of them, and I put those in the board package along with the description of what that was for. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're on to the executive director.
We are, and I'm going to make it brief, and every month I tell you about traffic and revenue. We still have a good story to tell. We had a good summer. We saw many, many days where we were in excess of 100% of traffic for the same day in 2019. Revenue still looks good. By now you're used to seeing my chart, and you know which of the columns to look at and we're right up there with 2019 numbers, both in traffic and in revenue. I won't sugarcoat it. Still, over the 3 fiscal years that are impacted by COVID, we are still down in total revenue about 20 million, if I'm not mistaken. Do I have that right, Jeff? About 20 million, covering the 3 fiscal years impacted by COVID. And that brings me to my fourth bullet point on my executive director's report, which is federal funding requests. We are aggressively pursuing federal funding for some very important projects. A raised grant for dehumidification of the cables and the anchorages at the Mount Hope Bridge, and several other projects that are pending pursuant to different federal funding programs. We had Senator Reed here last week, and we treated him to a quick presentation on what the dehumidification project would achieve for us, what it looks like. It's critical that a 92-year-old bridge get that project underway. We also have Senator Whitehouse coming next week, and we'll be showing him the same slides that we showed Senator Reid about our projects. I wanted to mention before I get to the what's taking up all our time these days, but the last thing I did want to mention that we did have a payment card industry audit. We take credit cards here. It's important that we be in PCI compliance. We sailed through that with flying colors, as we did through the Markham audit. So, knock on wood, and with good traffic and revenue, we've got a lot of good things to report. Finally, the AET conversion. As you know, we've done this in phases, starting in 2012 when we put up the gantry out there and started to do open road tolling back then. Since then, we did a pilot program on one side to see what it was like and to see how we would fare if we had all electronic tolling here at the plaza. We did it with just one direction. That was from February 14th to March 14th. No impact on revenue. The public consensus seemed to be, it's about time. We wanted free flow traffic, and it's about time that you moved forward. So we began that program. We also have more than dabbled in this. So when the media has said this is the beginning of a new era, it is. However, we've had all electronic tolling in place since shortly after the pandemic. The pandemic began last year by automating the 2 outside lanes out in our plaza so that we could be all electronic from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And those of you who come to during the day know that sometimes we use those 2 automated lanes on the outside. We use them during the day as well when we need to, when there's congestion or for whatever reason. So we're marching forward. The dates look like October 27th and 28th. We will stop taking cash and credit cards in one direction by the end of October 27th. The next day is a Thursday. We will stop taking stop taking cash and credit cards in the other direction, which would be the westbound direction. And so by Friday, the last Friday in October, we will be all electronic in the plaza. You've approved today the rate for those who don't have a transponder and an E-ZPass account in place. So we'll be moving full steam ahead on a campaign to tell everyone, get your transponders, get your E-ZPass accounts, get everything up and running so that you're getting the full benefit of our programs. So that's my report.
So moving to all electronic, there were a number of employees that were actually physically collecting tolls. Those employees under union rules are being assimilated into other positions here at the authority.
That's correct.
Do you see, while there are no immediate savings from attrition and or reduction in staff because of the automation, do you see a long-term reduction in expenses?
We do. We do. We are certainly hoping that automation will bring us the reduction that is the way we've gotten through the pandemic this whole last year. I keep saying we did it the old-fashioned way. We reduced expenses to meet the reduced toll and gas tax revenue. We do, and while we've negotiated with the union for wage rates for the new positions that we've created. We're no longer going to have a system over there of just operating a plaza. We are now operating assets, the Mount Hope Bridge, the Secana Bridge, the Jamestown Bridge. We're operating an entire system, and the traffic management technician positions that we've created are going to be focused on monitoring all of these assets more closely, and not just a primary focus on opening and closing lanes. We'll have no need for that anymore. The image review clerk positions that we've created will be looking at those license plates that don't readily match up with an E-ZPass account. We do anticipate long-term savings once this is the beginning. Eventually, we will be siting a new gantry and using this room as a reference. If it goes where we think it may be sited, we won't be able to see it. It'll be around the curve. from where we're sitting now. The last item in my executive director's report is a conceptual design of what eventually this area will look like. If you look at that last slide, it says all electronic tolling conceptual design. There's a green mark, and that shows you up beyond what we call structure E, where the actual bridge begins over the water. That's where the new open road tolling gantry will eventually be sited, or so we think right now. We're obviously in the planning stages. In the meantime, we'll be making some minor changes to the plaza when we go all electronic at the end of October, and then between the end of October and the end of December of this year, we'll be making more changes out there because safety is paramount, and we want to make certain that while this is more efficient, free flow traffic, no idling at the plaza, I will no longer see what I see out my window, which is people making decisions about which lane to choose. Can I find money in my glove compartment? I'm over on the side of the road, I'm stopping traffic. We won't see that anymore. But eventually that plaza will be demolished. So we're looking at 18 months of a temporary design with all electronic tolling, but with this plaza still existing while we design, situate, and construct a new open road tolling gantry up the road here, and then demolish the plaza here. So it's all exciting. It's all exciting and progress.
Director Alvey, also to what Laurie's saying, you have to have toll collectors out there.
Mhm.
The beauty of image review is we don't have to have as many personnel.
Right. Okay.
So
Over time, there'll be some
because the images come in and the person, and it's an efficient use of 8 hours versus someone who has to sit out in the toll booth, they may get tolls, periodically and spaced out. So as Laurie has stated,
But
we
in
will be able
productive
to
use.
reduce the cost eventually.
Okay.
And all positions that exist now are not being assimilated. There are people that are leaving.
So there's
retiring.
no attrition that's happening?
There is some, that's right.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay.
And so before we close this meeting, I did just want to say also, I can't say enough how
You
much.
guys coming up front
I
now.
don't know, I can't do that, get a lump in my throat either, but this staff is
How
just
many years?
amazing, and I'm so glad that,
17?
I'm so glad that,
A lot of years on the
to have worked with you and to have had the benefit of your knowledge, which I know is respected, not just here, but I know for a fact is respected in the IBTTA as being second to none. I mean, I don't know how I'll get along without you, but I do know that the other thing that Kathy did, in addition to just being amazing and knowledgeable about tolling, the other thing she did was she did things right in terms of preparing her staff for her departure. So I know she's left me with Katie, whose knowledge, and Kathy would tell you, equals hers in the tolling industry, and the others that are in that department as well that have been brought up by Kathy and Katie, and I'm so grateful that Kathy did things the right way, not leaving us, with some, with me saying, what do I do now? I've got a ready-made staff, and Kathy, thank you so much, and we hope you will. You will.
Well, the 6-month-old will be a little bit challenging, but that's okay. I do want to just take a few minutes. Laurie, it has been a pleasure to work with you. You have really taken the helm and done a great job with this agency. I can't say that enough. You took the helm at a precarious time in the authority's history, and you definitely allowed us to continue in very difficult circumstances. The pandemic, we didn't miss a beat, and that's due to you and your thoroughness, and you allowed me to continue running the department. You listened to me, which that in itself is a challenge. And everyone I've worked with, I don't want to refer to you as the new guys, because you have been here for a while. I'm grateful that Laurie has put a team in place that will serve the authority very well. This has been a great place to work with. I work with DOT. We help launch your program. That was an exciting time for me. You know, Buddy, he empowered people, he taught me how to empower people. I think as Laurie has said, my team down there, if I could have done anything, it was to mentor the people who will be here long before I cross over this bridge. I've got some exciting things ahead of me. I plan to travel, hike, see this beautiful country, and spend more time. Unfortunately, I have a big family, and they're spread out all over the country, so I won't have to be saying, can I get this time off? And I'm gonna spend the time with them, and I'm lucky I'm able to do that. So it's been a great career, it's been a great run, and now I'm looking forward to the next phase. And I wanna thank everyone. Especially this one, Katie. I couldn't have done what I did if she wasn't there. And I'm sure she feels that way about everyone else down there. It is truly a team effort at this authority. We cross over with every department, and we work well with RIDOT, and, you know, it's been a great run. Thank you.
I just want to echo the director's comments. Our truck tolling initiative would not have been the success it is without you in your participation. The knowledge, the experience, and the dedication that you had in terms of identifying with the mission and sticking to it was great. You were a cornerstone of the success of that program, and thank you for that. It was a heavy lift, I know.
It was exciting.
Yeah.
Can we get a percentage of the?
They do. They do, yeah.
We deduct whatever's not collected.
There you go. You know, our decision to go with you and your staff here to implement the tolling program for us and to piggyback on the successes that you're having here already as our back office was the best decision that was made in that program, and I appreciate your efforts. Thank you. You're done good.
Thank you.
And just as the litigator who's relied on Kathy, I have to pile on. She got us answers immediately, and they were always right. And she's working on language for affidavits in Boston on her, right?
On my birthday, that's right.
On your birthday, so I
Before
won't,
a Red Sox game, it was.
I won't regale you with the dedication, but that's a good example of what I've dealt with. Every time I needed something from her department, it was A+, on time, and never questioned.
Thank you.
Good job.
Well done.
You did the public good.
Yes, and your family.
I don't know if they'll say that.
Who's that person on your ID card? Is that a 17-year picture? Or is that more recent?
No, probably.
7 years ago? Good for you.
Well, thank you, it's been a good
Motion
meeting.
to adjourn?
Yes, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved and seconded, unanimously voted. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
We do have